It's finally happening. We are back, and it is not just the Asians beating each other up. One and all, welcome back to the 4v4 $1,000 tournament happening right now in Age of Empires 4, Fields of Blood. The Polish have arrived. In a cavalry meta, 4v4, surely the Hussars are going to come. No, we don't. Please add Poland to the game, Debs. I actually really want Winged Hussars so badly. But we have a cool matchup here, folks. We've got the Polish lads going up against one of the Chinese stacks. So the official names of these rosters are going to be... I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I'm just going to cheat and open it up. We have got the Polish Mountain in the south versus Liu Tao A, because Liu Tao has two teams in this tournament. Really big shout out to Clearman for hosting this, by the way. He got $1,000 together to reward to the players. Really cool format as well. So these two teams are pure blood. You've got Polish versus Chinese. But you're actually allowed to have up to 2 nationalities in your team. In fact, hopefully later on this tournament, we're going to see one of those in action because Baltun, a very well-known European player, teamed up with a bunch of Taiwanese players to form a stack. But yeah, let's dissect this a little. A Northside team, very cavalry heavy, right? Ayyubid, Japanese, French. Usually these are going to be your cavalry bound civs, Desert Raiders, Mounted Samurai, French Knights alike. The English is the kind of odd one out, but with a fourth spawn, he could be very aggressive with a council hall play. I think they need to be a bit aggressive though, because what I'm seeing from the Southside team is a lot of greed. HRE, Byzantines, and English. It's a lot of wooling that needs to happen, but if they start to carve up this map a little, it's going to be very difficult for the cavalry to dictate flow. Really cool spawn, by the way, overall, with the kind of, staggered graph approach, shall we say. So 4-player-wise, we're going to have Jeanne and HRE. And on the other side, it's going to be that English and that French pick. Kind of sucks for the French player to be this far forward, but you need to for the Japanese player to boom. And also on the other side, Ayyubid player probably wants to boom, right? Instead, though, I think what we're getting here is the mass Desert Raider strat. Yeah, this is becoming popular. We've already seen this once today. Tradewing Advisors gives you the Adabegs 20% more health. It's about 24 extra health per Desert Raider. Doesn't sound like a lot, but every little counts and really is needed when you're playing into mass Desert Raiders, as they're expensive at 180 resources each. They take a very long time to produce. So I'm a pretty big fan of this type of build. And considering on the other side, like, you don't really have this expectation of mass Lombos being present, right? Like, Speedio did pick English, but on such a big map, Desert Raiders should be able to avoid the Lombos. So, although Speedio will be safe, a lot of these other players are likely to suffer because of the camels. I'm wondering as well, do we just see... Ooh. Could this be a Keshik game? Possibly. You're probably going to want Lombos to put you over the edge up against Pact, so he's outnumbered there. And then you just play Lombo plus Limitane. You could actually just do Limitane Javelin, though. That makes a lot of sense, because then you have the counter to archers. Looking elsewhere on the map, people asking Matisse 2TC. Yes. And I'm not sure how we feel about that. That's weird. Please tell me the English player isn't doing the same, right? I mean, he's already setting up farms, so apparently Speedio had a really rough start. No, he's got 20 sheep. So there's not really any reason to need to set up farms this early. But I'm a little bit shocked. I know he's the retracted player. I guess this was meant to be a counter to Fast Castle from the other team, right? Because you're expecting Japan at least to go Fast Castle, which means less pressure onto your base, which means you get away with more greed. However, I think he's going to need some walls. Probably a long wall here to shove towards the center, and even a longer wall over here to push towards Teal's base. The problem I'm seeing with what they're doing here is KLW playing as a French Cav Civ. If the pressure comes into him, he's not going to have any assistance, right? Because now for the next 3 or 4 minutes, his green player is being greedy. I do understand the sentiment from Matisse here. Matisse is the highest ranked player on this team, if I'm not mistaken. I think Mihodo is pretty high ranked. Let me double check where he's at now, though. Mihodo is actually higher than Matisse. He's 82nd in the world. So now I am a little bit confused, because I'm assuming Mihodo is going Fast Castle, and the Matisse, the second highest rank, is going to be greedy too. Typically, one player can be this greedy, but half the team being this greedy when you're up against mass Cav Civs is incredibly dangerous. And thank you, Tobo. Like, I think the Red Bull event was fantastic. I think it was their best one to date, at least from an in-person perspective. I can't really comment on the remote viewing experience, but I want to pave the way for 4 to get involved again and Myth to get involved again. And I think we have a better chance of that if we actually look for the positives. And it doesn't mean don't provide feedback, but it means, you know, be positive about your feedback. Or rather, be productive about it. That's what I ask of people. You might not agree with everything they've done or whatever, but, you know, at least think about the way that you word your concerns. So we have got longbow spam coming from the backside. This is a long walk, though. Meanwhile, blue... okay, am I the only one looking at the roles each team is taking and being a bit puzzled? Like, blue being the forward English player and taking a 2TC approach, and then purple being retracted and taking a 1TC approach. It's a little bit muddled, but I guess the roles in a way make sense, right? Because you've got pink providing mass cav, you've got red's probably going to rush Castle Age here. In fact, we can see he definitely is. And then yellow's going to provide cav. So you have got double boomer and double zoomer on each side. Why is the Kura taking so long to build? I think he only had like 2 villagers building it. Which makes sense. If this is an optimized fast castle build, like there's some people that do this with Japan. You're used to seeing Kura rushed up because Japan needs tier 2 because they need arrow slits. When you play team games, you don't need arrow slits necessarily. What you just need is an optimal castle timing. So it's very different in this approach. So Teal. He's going to start chasing away these initial Desert Raiders, but difficult to reach, right? We have got a melee zone play. Melee zone's kind of awkward against Desert Raiders, right? They have the 5 melee armor, so you don't do much damage. You're half damage reduced already. And also, like, you are up against Lombos. Zone in general, when she plays against ranged civs, you play ranged forms, so you can't get sniped as easily. I don't think it matters as much when you're playing in, like, team formats. And what do you think about the words from Beastie? I haven't seen the Mandaro. I checked his YouTube channel for a video. I haven't seen one up yet. I assume it's going to go up. I don't know if he drilled into me or whatever, but apparently he watched my video. My commiserations, it was an hour long. But the idea that, like, if players refuse to participate, the money will just go into different tournaments is pretty assumptual. I think that shows a pretty lacking understanding of how funding works. You would actually bare minimum have a failure year in the circulation and the ecosystem. On top of that, I would debate that any other event that exists in AoE4 can do as much on a marketing front for the game as Red Bull can, if done right. And I would challenge anyone that challenges that. Because no one, like, if you take the money away from Red Bull, no one's going to go and say, let's do a castle or a stadium. Just doesn't, it's not realistic. Unless you can get, like, an ESL or something to come in. I think Red Bull just needs time to cook, needs time to evolve. You know, AoE 2 wasn't at the scale it is now, rather, with Red Bull in Iteration 1. So, Aeolus. How are we looking on the night count? 8 so far. First of the Samurai are coming in. And it is going to be just the atypical build, right? Yoroshiro drop there. I'm going to zoom in a bit. What do you guys think of this? I think I mentioned it in my video. I prefer this zoom to this. I think this is much better from an angle perspective. You can just tell what's happening a lot better. There's a few moments where it sometimes feels a little bit close in a team format, but overall, I'm a much bigger fan of this. So Longbow Master is just patrolling around, right? He hasn't been able to attack at all. We have blue setting up the walls as well. This is starting to feel like more of a macro-driven game than an all-in timer from both sides. Then again, I feel like the Chinese team does have a clearer all-in time, whereas with HRE plus Byzantines, it's almost like the sky's the ceiling for the Polish boys. Whereas Japan, Ayubids, this is all about tempo. And Ayubids aren't looking to rush an age up still. They're just still playing the age 2. Makes a lot of sense. Like when you're up against mass cav civs, you can still contest them. Man. Feels like everyone's having to just camp KLW's base, which is awkward because when you consider this fast tech play, it's kind of a pseudo counter to Mihodo. Mihodo wants the relics, but if they don't have map control to guard relics, he's not going to get them. And on the flip side, because you went for the floating gate, you have got Shintos already to pick up those relics for the north side team. Speedio. This is why I just don't like English in maps this big, right? I mean, he's a threat if he ever reaches you. This is like a person who's so big they can't move, but they're holding a longsword, you know? You're like, if I get close to him, he's going to swing for me, but I could just not. It's up now. BC says Microsoft has set amount of money to be spent on tournaments per year. That will be true. There will be a budget, but do you think Microsoft paid Red Bull over $100,000 for that tournament, or do you think Microsoft gave Red Bull, what was it, $30,000? Just want you to figure. So I'm curious. I love doing this test in esports because I think for a lot of us, we don't really process the cost behind the scenes. I mean, how could we? How much do you think it costs to run an event in a castle? Be real. It's not cheap, guys. Microsoft will provide some of that funding, but actually a lot of that comes from Red Bull. They probably spent over $500,000 just to rent the castle. I'm kind of speculating on that one. It maybe would have been cheaper for the castle itself, but all in all the production, yeah. I can tell you how much a stadium would cost. It's more. So second TC going up from Aeolus. He's just going to linger in the age, which makes sense. These French Knights can actually hold out for a long time. And the walls are now going up. I'm starting to feel a lot more confident about the Southside team, right? Like Matisse is going age 3 now. Relic count has to be at least 3 home, right? Yeah, it's exactly 3. 4th one on the way for Orange. Red, meanwhile, he's got 2. So he's not doing too bad for himself. Matisse with this tech up can then also rush for relics on his side of the map with the Grand Winery. Remember, he gets access to Priest. So I actually think with the spawn placements and the mid-maps grabs rather when it comes to relics, the Polish team is slightly better off. And yeah, I'm hopeful for the future A4 competitive. That whole video, I feel like I tried to take a positive light, and I don't know if people are upset I wasn't more negative. There are things we can do to improve the game and the scene. We focus on that. We build bigger. We build better. Simples. Pressure coming in for the Mountain Samurai, though. So already a little bit of chip damage adding up into KLW, who is already getting brutalized in this game. 28 villagers. Meanwhile, everyone else is at 40 plus in this game. Yeah, KLW is the sacrificial lamb, man. Like I said, it's looking really good for Poland, and it is. Except when you look at Teal. Everyone else in the game is having a good time. Purple's walled up, green is walled up, and playing free TC Byzantines. And then, of course, you've got HRE that are likely going to try to rush Imperial and get the equivalent with Palace of Swabia. But on the north side, everyone else is pretty content, right? Like Yellow's unharassed, Blue played the 2 TC, Ayyubids have now gone to the point that they should be aging up soon. I'm a little bit surprised, actually, they still haven't. And Red is as content as can be, right? He's got 3 relics home. He's got the Yorishiro drops, which is going to increase his economy. And I imagine, yeah, 2 TC already. Wouldn't be surprised if he even adds in a 3rd. Yeah, I don't know, man. This is kind of rough. Like, I think there is a way that Poland can still win this, but they need to start attacking the flanks really quickly here. Instead, they're blobbing full infantry, which in theory is good once these walls are up. But I want you guys to remember, these are not real walls. They're just palisade walls. And in 1v1, a palisade wall will buy you some time. In a 4v4? All right, one's if you think the north side team have got this, two's if you think it's the south side team. And yeah, so the blue 2TC King's Palace, I see this a lot at the moment. Even in 1v1s, English players have started doing this. They are hella greedy these days. It's not bad, though, in this format, right? Like, what's the alternative going to do for you? White Tower doesn't really matter. I think White Tower... So, how to describe this? No. White Tower... in most Team English games, feels like the move. You're kind of throwing your teammates under the bus because your base is protected, right? But theirs aren't. And you're already playing an infantry focus with English, so you should be able to protect yourself already, right? So, like, it sounds weird to say, but I kind of feel like being more greedy is more friendly to your team than the White Tower often is. There are situations where it works better, like if you're a forward-facing player in a certain spawn, great. But I think they had the right call here because they already applied enough pressure with Mass Cav. A White Tower isn't needed because you shouldn't be being attacked. Remember what I said about English players just leaving you to die? This is what I mean. This could have just been a white tower build from Speedio because he's taken that approach of I'm going to wall myself in and I don't know you anymore. Like, they could have connected the walls, right? Like, there's a gap here. They haven't even actually helped carve it up between them. Ay, ay, ay. This is rough, though. I mean, KLW's relevance is shriveling up as this game goes on. Well, on the right side to try and protect. Good body blocks there. Gets him a few horsemen. Sick micro there by Mahodo. Who is this man? Ranked 82nd on the leaderboard and shows you the tricks that he can pull there. Great pullback by the Knights. Gets a few conversions across, and he needs every little bit he can get to help because it's a 2-on-1, and nobody is coming to help in a rush. I mean, Purple's on his way over, right? But Speedio is playing that slow infantry comp. We talked about why this is a weakness, and we're seeing it firsthand right here. Mahodo unable to defend his own base. He is also now being stripped of economy. Oof. And I mean, he has got a decent number of relics, right? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 relics. Really good for the HRE of Regnit's game. But when you look up at the eco difference, right? It's almost a 50 villager lead at this stage for the Northside team. The military is at least looking good for Southside, but when you consider how much of that is into infantry in this game, 2 of the players are playing infantry comp. Meanwhile, other side, look at the cav count, right? 22, 23, 8. Then over here, it's 11, 9. If the Polish guys can truly wall this map and truly create a choke point, they will be favored. But they're struggling with that idea right now. Liu Tao. Once again, look at the clash. This time they've caught Speedio out of position. Not much of a front line to work with. The longbows are going to prove ineffective against the Mount Samurai. Reinforcements now arriving. Jeanne is coming in. But she's only level 2, and they can't stand their ground. He bails! Oh, no. I feel so bad for KLW. Right now, people want to be like, why did he betray Speedio? He has to. He has nothing in the chamber. 40 villages and 11 military units. This man is but a footnote in the history taking place on this battlefield. Matisse now trying to be the long-lasting story, though. I don't like the way that Gold Horn Tower is working, but I like the thought of Foreign Engineering Company. However, it's going to come at a cost. It's going to come at a price, and it's likely to be your front-facing teal player. Knight count is just getting too big here. Lombos are going to reinforce from the west side, though, so Matisse able to save him before he's fully cooked. Still, Speedio now going to be dove onto, just mass spears to defend. It's kind of crazy, actually. Like, you've got 2 players just building mass spears, and it's still not enough to stop the mass cavs comp. I mean, this is the problem, right? Like, spears do count a cav, but you need the numbers. And if you're playing Spearman, you're separated, right? You're slow to respond, and that's where the cav meta always wins in team games, is that mobility to stretch across the map so much cleaner than Spearman can. And the flood of troops coming in now, right? Like, we're seeing spear, spear, spear reaction. These men-at-arms are going to eat them all up. It's kind of tricky right now, right? I think you need your HRE player to really be getting into maybe Men-at-Arms himself, right? Because then it's like a semi-counter to the Mass Knights because they get the Heavy Maces, and then it's a counter to the Men-at-Arms of the English. The other tricky part right now is this Outpost crawl is really on point for Impact. That attack speed buffer is huge in these battles. It's not a Network of Citadels effect, but I think that might be on the way soon, considering a Berkshire is now being built. So Matisse, he got the space. He's had the freest game imaginable. Compared to everyone else, he's actually the only person who hasn't been touched. What does he do with this tech play? We've got, what, hand cannoneers on the way? That's peculiar, considering that he went for the Western contract. He's actively producing hand cannoneers instead of just getting Streltsy. I guess he feels like he needs more punch right now. So he needs as many gunpowders as possible. Eventually, it'll just be Streltsy, right? Because it's just more cost efficient than going hand cannoneers. But for the time being, he has to go for the force pump. Yeah, I've got the forward keep as well. Siege Workshop's also being set up. So it looks like Matisse is going to try to strike in towards Aeolus's base. In the meantime, Liu Tao now on his way up. Or rather, Diver Zealot on his way up with a Tanagashima Gunsmith. Gunsmith hasn't been seen in a while, right? Like, a lot of people tend to go Castle the Crow. I don't mind Gunsmith here, though. I think the idea in team games is the game should last longer, ergo you should get more tickets. So you can kind of stockpile up to a point where you can get like that, 30 hand cannoneer pump that could win the game. And oil count for Matisse is sitting at about 600 olive oil a minute. So in terms of production rates, he can afford one Streltsy group every minute and a bit. Yeah, it's not great. And that comes down to the relics, right? Because he didn't pick up any. They all went to his teammate, if I'm not mistaken, or to the enemy. So that's what feels a little bit weaker. Like, typically in a Byzantine game, you're used to seeing 3-4 relics. And of course, when you put them in the Grand Winery, that can generate olive oil instead. Chip damage again on Mahodo. Dude, I don't think I've seen an HRE player... Actually, I have. In 1v1s, you do not see HRE players struggle, but in team games, guys, they're hit or miss. They're very predictable. Like, pretty much every HRE player is always going to rush Castle H. And good teams counter that. I think, actually, when you're like trying to set up for HRE and comp, if you're playing against an organized team, HRE is a really big bait. I've seen Western teams highly value it, but funnily enough, the Eastern teams, the Vietnamese, the Chinese, that play a lot more of team games, don't actually value it at all. Central fight. Jeanne trying to farm up. It's the only way KLW can actually be somewhat relevant. If he can get that attack speed buffer, that would be huge for his team. How's the XP looking right now? He's definitely stockpiling off the back of this fight. He's on the backside of the cleaves as well. Divine Restoration probably worth using, but a little bit too late here. And now the pathing taking him even further away. Longbows and Bombards will win this fight. And you can see from this fight alone, KLW is going to get about half of what he needs to go level 4 Jeanne. Yeah, huge fight. Absolutely crucial fight as well. At this point, you're kind of free players. KLW needs to contribute. He can't do it in economy. He can't do it in raw military. He is truly a support Civ right now with Jeanne on her own. I think we've got more age ups coming through. Mahodo now finally getting into that Imperial age. And of course, it is going to be the Palace of Swab here because at 22 minutes, you might think, shouldn't he be able to do Elspac? No. He's still losing villages. 53 and going down. Damn, he has had a hard game. I mean, it's kind of crazy how methodical Liu Tao were with this timing. Love the strategy. Like, when we saw it getting in, I said it was scary, this free cav comp. And you see why in this game, right? It ruined Mahodo's timing. It ruined the forward-facing Jeanne player because guess what, guys? Jeanne sucks against Night Sifs. She gets eviscerated. She can barely get out of level 2. And we saw the struggle. It was so real in this early game. Now even Trade getting set up on the backside by Aeolus. So, the guy who maybe his economy was feeling a bit weaker originally, catching up. We also have multi-TC coming in from the Ayyubid player who was slipping behind a little bit. Is going to fix that now. I believe, did he go Desert Raider? Yeah, so he's been stacking free army as well. This is starting to turn up, though. And he has an insane bank in reserve. I'd love to see him give some of this to KLW. Like, KLW can use this. He can't, right? This is way too much food for a Byzantine player at this stage. If you give it to KLW, he can add in those premium knights. So yeah, a little bit selfish from Matisse, but I think it's also, what's the communication like, right? Like, people are going to argue Matisse is being greedy, why is he not doing it? Because, like, if you don't play team games regularly, subconsciously, you're not thinking about this, right? KOW needs to make the call, I'm struggling for food. Does anyone have a big reserve? And then Matisse can help it. In before the team comms is just KLW going, Matisse, please. I just want to feed my family. I got 3 kids. I'm not even thinking about college. Just let them survive until the morning. And Matisse has just like got his favorite dance tracks on way too loud. We have to do quite the dance here. Backstab is coming through. Aeolus comes out to play and comes in behind. The front line, the back line about to commence, and it's a smoosh. Matisse is going to lose the forward army. Ay, ay, ay. Outnumbered. Horsemen at least going to come round to pay some revenge on the Pact. In the meantime, looks like Jeanne D'Arc is going to come out just in time to get sniped on 4 HP. So KOW finds his relevance and immediately regrets it, as now he needs to spend 1,000 gold to get Jeanne back into action. Speedior looks like he might be able to sustain this fight here a little bit longer, but with the hand cannoneer trickle and also his Mountain Samurai, I feel like this is a losing engagement for the Polish. And when you consider that it's mostly cavalry, or at least has been mostly cavalry for Liu Tao, for them to now be in the military lead is a scary position for the Poles. Yeah, Man Samurai just kind of go hard, guys. Like, the Uma Bannerman at this stage of the game, just look at that damage. Kind of feels like you have an elite army tech for Samurai when you think about it that way, for the Mountain Samurai. On top of that, I mean, he could be going for the extra movement speed tech. Kind of surprised he didn't. It's so cheap, it's kind of worth it. We've seen Louis, in particular, loves this tech. In fact, wait, did he get it? Oh, he did. Yeah, the reason this is important, guys, is like, once you are in the fight, it kind of doesn't matter, right? But when you're heading across the fight, the extra movement speed you get from that tech allows you to arrive quicker. Because remember, the way it works is you get 10% more movement speed when you have deflective armor available. The reason I don't like it when you're chasing or whatever in a fight is when you're in formation, the moment one of these units loses the deflective, all of them go back down to 1.62 movement speed, right? Because they move at the speed of the slowest unit in formation. Dude, this game is so scrambled. The Desert Raider count is wild, though. They're still only vetted. I think if they can get Pink up to Imperial, that's where this game gets quite scary for the Polish. I mean, the Horseman strategy is working quite well, though, right? Like, we have to remember Hodo. He went straight for the Elite Horseman. He got the free ranged armor. So he's barely getting tickled here. 7 ranged armor versus 10 bow damage. And remember, although these guys do have melee armor, with the amount of bonus you're getting from these Horsemen, you die pretty fast. You know, if the numbers are even. Which they're definitely not right now. I'm starting to think about this with Cliffside. Cliffside, to me, the more I see it in team games, it kind of reminds me of Rocky Canyon, where like Rocky Canyon, when it first came at 1v1, you're like, wow, very fast games. And then people discover, wow, walling's a thing. I still rate Cliffside highly in 1v1s, because I think you have a really cool dynamic between the early game, mid game, late game. But I do feel like even when you dumpster someone in the early game on this map, it somehow claws its way into the late game. How's the hand cannon account looking? It's 17 in climbing, so we are gradually getting to that premium comp. It's just crucial that we get, the Yumi Bannerman out. Remember, this does buff the Ashigaru by 5, and then you can still get gunpowder tech, making the Japanese hand cannoneers some of the best in the game. Now all you need is a Mongol player, guys, to get the extra one time. Oh, God, dude. And Mongols are so broken in team format. I mean, they can be a liability early on, but the Khan Hunter alone is a spicy boy. The funny part is, like, neither of these teams were worried about Mongols. Do you guys remember what both of these teams banned? Because a team has 1 ban for a game. And if this doesn't, like, just... If we can't add this to the list of why camels are OP, I don't know what we can. They both banned the Abbasids. Just a wild civ. Shun. Gotta give it to him. KLW, for a guy who's down at 62 villages, he kind of feels like he's relevant right now. I might just be baiting, though. We have to remember the Northside team all, more or less, have capped out at the top of their economy. I love the fact that Pact went down to 125. That's really smart, because his military costs less than his teammates. So realistically, he doesn't need 140 to sustain mass men-at-arms. Side hand cannoneers are pushing it again. Limitane aren't too bad at absorbing the blows here, but you really need the elite army tactics. Streltsy hand cannoneer backline also not looking that good either. Only 8 hand cannoneers and 9 Streltsy for Matisse. He baits the horseman, the knights out of position. But with the hand cannoneers catching up, this is looking grim. Matisse may end up struggling to hold this. Limitane are going to get mopped up, and it's going to turn into a hand cannoneer on hand cannoneer fight. With the extra damage from the Yumi, could it be enough? No, because Matisse went for gunpowder tech. And it looks like Diver Zealot still hasn't. We need to do a check here, because this is really important. He does have a uni, but for some reason, he hasn't teched it, which is quite surprising for a guy who's just been spamming into hand cannoneers. He does at least have the elite army tactics, which makes a lot of sense, but this detail is even more important. You need the hand cannoneers. You need them to be at top performance. Like, the weird thing about Yumi is it's kind of like a poor man's university. But you need to be premium, right? Like, you look at his economy, he should be premium at this stage. Especially considering he's got Shogunate. Wait, yes. Thank God. I was about to say, yeah, he's got Shogunate full surround. My food is going to be at 5? You're assuming we're going to be done at 5. You're so cute. I'm going to be eating cold food. I can sense it. I can feel it. This is only game 1. Oi, KLW. Kind of feels like it needs to be babysat here. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Speedio, he went for this Berkshire, but it's not as forward as maybe it could be. He was more paranoid about his own economy. Someone needs to bolster him. He has got the guild hall at home. KLW, once he gets the red pass up at the front of his base, he'll stabilize a little, but I feel like we're a long way away from that. Food is at least looking good. He now needs to find the gold, though. And I can highly recommend Shogun. Dude, you guys know what I love about the Shogun TV show so much? I mean, great writing, great acting overall, right? But, like, the premise, for those who don't know, white guy turns up to Japan in, like, the feudal age, right? The cool thing about it is how it doesn't play a bias of perspective, right? Like, you know when you watch a movie in English and it's like England versus this other country. It's like, they're the bad guys, right? Because we're speaking in English. They do this cool balance of the Westerner sees the Japanese as savages, and the Japanese see the Westerners as savages. And it's so rare to see a TV show get that so right. Kind of like, actually, yeah, Chinese movies do this as well. Like, you guys remember the guy who plays, was it Crossbones from the Marvel? He, like, plays a regular kind of white bad guy in Chinese movies. And he always, like, loses, right? But he's, like, the stereotypical bad guy. Man, this game is not ending. We do have a push towards the trade coming out from Matisse. But the Knights are coming here as well, so it doesn't really feel like it's ever truly going to reach. He also has now encountered the Red Pass, which was crept on the west side. Have you seen First Contact of Japanese with Portuguese from Voices for the Pass channel? No. I can't say I have. That was a mouthful to read. If you want a bit more comedial but banger of a show which injects itself into history, and you guys are all history buffs, I mean, you're age-old fans, right? Check out Rome. It never completed, and no one knows why. Not even the executives know why it got cancelled. It was like, I think the way I describe it is kind of like Game of Thrones level of quality before Game of Thrones. I swear by that TV show. And I kind of like this about team games in some ways, right? The outcome is much slower to resolve, but it gives time for almost like a podcast approach mid-game. Let me know what you guys think of that overall. Are we just playing mass archer? Hand cannons makes sense, but the archers is a big question mark from Jeanne D'Arc. Also, actually, even bigger question mark. Why is Jeanne D'Arc not playing Jeanne D'Arc? I mean, I guess all we have to do is look at KLW statistics to understand why they're not playing Jeanne D'Arc. We do have Revoltiquins. What a rare sight from the English. Oh, yes. You don't get to see it in the 1v1s. But in the team tourneys, maybe. You have to be a little bit careful of the Berkshire. Remember, these things get shredded by range units. Bombards are at least starting to siege into this. And it looks like there's no micro coming out. Speedio, a big missed trick here. He should be like trying to snipe down either the Bombard or the Revoltiquins. Instead, it looks like he's just going to get blitzkrieged here. Yep, Berkshire soon to go down. This is a breach point, right? The defense is behind this. Not that impressive. I love the fact they don't even want to finish off KLW's base because it's kind of just irrelevant at this stage. Oh, man. West side push did fail, and now all of a sudden it's going to be a repel and a repulse. Revoltiquins from red as well. Dude, this is crazy. We have double Revoltiquin. We can't get French Revoltiquins, right? Because he didn't go for the Royal. Ah, that would have been the play. The triple Revoltiquin strategy. I think Revoltiquins is usually a weird unit to gauge the impact of. They are quite impactful, but it feels like you require a specific circumstance. Otherwise, it's a creeping effect. But I think the biggest thing that baits people into thinking Revoltiquins do nothing is when enemies trickle troops. They are killing fast. It's just you're not seeing the big wallop because your opponent's coming in piece by piece. Oh, dude, this choke point is a curse, though. This is a nightmare. Like, you're playing English mass meta arms. You're playing HRE, which is mass melee always. You're playing Jeanne, which is mass melee. Republicans is the dream. Or rather, for the Polish, the nightmare. Oh my god. They're getting massacred. East side, men at arms, easily able to hold back the horseman mass. French Knights now running from ALs to assist. The keeps are at least going to hold on for them. In the meantime, the west side, the dive goes deeper. Matisse, he's scrambling and struggling. He's down to 80 economy now. What happened? I think he ran out of resources on the backside. He tried to send them all to the forward, and this is what happened. The Republicans had a field day. Ay, caramba, and the rally points are not helping Matisse at all. They're killing him right now. He's losing track of where units are producing to, and that's going to be it. They call it. GG comes out. The Polish team are unable to do it. Honestly, Liu Tao just so formulated, so scary. I mean, this is what I was warning about, right? Like, Vietnam, China, these guys seem to be on another level when you look at the team environments. And this was a case in point as to why. You're talking about two players that are top 100 material. Matisse, I think, is around 200 at the moment, less time in. But Mahodo is ranked 82nd in the world. I don't think any of these guys, maybe Aurelius is like top 300. The rest are a little bit lower, right? This is just raw grind on the team environment. It's so different. Let me know what you guys think of this, though. I think it's kind of cool to see these environments. Let me know what you think of them, almost like the podcast approach in those slower games. I like it. I think it keeps it fresh. And hopefully enjoyed it. And I'll see you all in the next chapter.